All right, everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always ready to begin.
Awesome. So today we're tackling something that, well, it kind of feels like it could be a bit of a game changer. We're looking at this whole no tax on overtime movement.
Yeah, definitely a hot topic right now.
It really is. I mean, who wouldn't love to keep every single dollar they earn from those extra hours, right? No taxes. Sounds pretty sweet.
Right. At first glance, it seems like a no-brainer.
Totally. But as we dug into the research for this deep dive, we found there were definitely two sides to this story. So before we get into all that, let's start with the basics. What exactly is this no tax on overtime thing?
Okay, so in a nutshell, it's a movement advocating for, well, just that. No taxes on any income you make from working overtime. It's about letting workers keep 100% of their overtime earnings.
So like if you normally make 20 bucks an hour, you pull a 10-hour overtime shift, you'd pocket the full 200 bucks.
Exactly. No cuts, no deductions, all yours.
Okay, so that's the basic idea. Now, we've seen a bunch of articles and opinion pieces with super catchy headlines like more money in your pocket and earn more, keep more. Hard to argue with that, right?
Yeah, those definitely grab your attention. And it makes sense, right? Who wouldn't want more money?
For sure.
Yeah.
But let's dig a little deeper. What are some of the arguments beyond just the bigger paycheck? Why are people pushing for this?
Well, a lot of the proponents we looked at really focus on this idea of rewarding hard work and dedication. It's about acknowledging that those who put in those extra hours, go the extra mile, should be able to reap the full financial benefits.
So it's like if you're putting in the effort, you deserve to keep the full rewards. I can see that.
Right. And it kind of makes you think about how we value our time, you know? Is it all about the money or is there more to it?
Yeah, that's a great point. Because, I mean, right now, a lot of us automatically say yes to overtime for that extra cash. But could a change like this actually help people prioritize their time differently? Like maybe choose to spend more time with their families or pursue hobbies instead of always chasing the overtime hours.
That's exactly what some proponents believe. They think this could lead to a better work-life balance. If the financial incentive isn't quite as strong, people might be more likely to actually say no to overtime and prioritize their personal lives.
Okay, so that's definitely an interesting perspective. But I can also see the other side of this. Like, what about the companies? Wouldn't this make it harder for them to find people willing to work those extra hours? And what about the impact on productivity?
You're hitting on some of the key concerns here. Some experts worry that this lack of financial incentive could lead to lower productivity. Businesses might struggle to find workers to cover those overtime shifts, especially if they can't offer that extra money as motivation.
So they might have to increase base pay or offer other benefits to attract workers, which could have a ripple effect throughout the whole economy.
Exactly. And then there's the big question of government revenue. I mean, taxes from our paychecks are a huge part of how the government funds things like healthcare, education, infrastructure,
Yeah.
all the essential stuff.
Right, so if people aren't paying taxes on overtime, that's less money for those crucial public services.
Exactly. And some people worry that this decrease in revenue could lead to cuts in vital programs, potentially hurting those who need them the most.
And it also raises questions about fairness and equality. Like,
Well,
wouldn't this benefit higher earners more, those who already have more opportunities to work overtime in the first place?
that's another valid point. And, it's interesting because this whole no tax on overtime thing is sparking debate all over the world. There have actually been some experiments with similar policies in a few countries.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, one example that came up in our research was Sweden. They actually had a trial period where they lowered taxes on overtime pay for certain industries.
What happened? Did it work?
The results were mixed. Some workers definitely saw a bump in their take-home pay, but then there were also concerns about increased pressure from employers to work more overtime. Like, even if workers technically have more control over their time, they might feel obligated to take on extra hours to maintain their income levels.
Ah, so like a double-edged sword kind of thing.
Exactly. And that's why this whole movement is generating so much discussion. It forces us to think about the role of government, individual choices, and that tricky balance between work and life.
So we've laid out the arguments, the potential upsides, the downsides, and even looked at some real-world examples. But what I'm really curious about is how would all this affect you personally? If no tax on overtime became a reality, how would it change your decisions?
That's the question, isn't it? Would you be more inclined to take on those extra shifts if you knew you were keeping every dollar? Would you rethink your whole approach to earning and spending? Or, knowing you wouldn't be losing out on a chunk of cash, would you be more likely to prioritize your free time?
Right. It makes you consider what you truly value, doesn't it? Money is a big factor, but it's not the only one.
Exactly. This whole debate pushes us to confront our own priorities and values. It's about figuring out the trade-offs we're willing to make between time and money, and understanding how those choices affect not just ourselves, but also the society we live in.
Such a fascinating topic. Thanks for joining me for this deep dive. And for everyone listening, we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on all this? Would no tax on overtime be a life changer for you, or are the potential risks just too much to handle? Let us know. This is a conversation that's just getting started, and your voice matters.